Happy Ali Hazelwood Day. In an attempt to not purchase physical books, I purchased my first book on the Kobo. I got Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. It was only $11.99. I went on the Kindle and the Kobo to see how much they were, because there was one book I was looking at that was different prices on the Kindle versus the Kobo, so I wanted to get the cheaper option. Obviously I really wanted Ali Hazelwood's book and I wanted to start reading it today, right now. I actually wanted to start reading it at midnight, but I've been so sick. Like the last 2 days I was sick, and then yesterday was a bad day. When I get sick, I don't know, my mental health in general is shit, but like things were getting dark yesterday, and I feel like today I got up and finally, I don't know if you can know, like my voice sounds kind of like blah. I feel like my voice sounds weird. So I got up today, I opened my blinds. Yesterday was like my day off, so if I have 2 days off, I'll take one day as a dark room day, and that's basically a day where I don't open my blinds and I just kind of recharge for the day, and I can either watch movies at home, read, watch TV. I can basically rot. It's like a rotting day. I heard someone call it a rotting day. I usually give myself one of those because I work the other days and I work odd hours. I feel like yesterday, because I was sick also, I'm not opening my blinds. That was probably not good for my mental health, but I woke up feeling like crap. What better way to combat that than reading the newest Ali Hazelwood book? And I wanted to get it on my Kobo versus my Kindle because this is like the true test. It's a book I've purchased. It'll be in color, which means I can annotate and highlight in color, and I love annotating romance books, and so to be able to annotate this book in color, I think it's gonna be so awesome. It's 8:49 in the morning. I have work later, and I guess I'm going to see a movie with a friend before work, but let's start reading. I'm like, oh, I love Ali. Like I know her. I love Ali. You know, in her reader's note, she says that she thinks of this book as less of a rom-com and more of an erotic romance, which her other books do have spice, at least like 1 or 2 scenes, and they're written very well. For her, it means that like there's just gonna be even more spice, which will be different from her other books. And I mean, I think that's okay. I like that she like prefaces like their relationship in here is very physical, because I do think people would pick up on that. Oh, this is either insta-lovey or it's just physical attraction. And so I think that it's really cool for her to be like, look, like this is the story I wrote, and it's gonna be a little bit different, but I still hope you love it. Not Eli like saving her from an encounter with a horrible man, which I'm glad that Eli was able to pick up on her feeling uncomfortable and that he stepped in. Good for you, Eli. Just finished chapter 1 of Ali Hazelwood's Not in Love. I didn't even read a synopsis before I started because I knew I was gonna read it anyway because it's Ali Hazelwood. I was gonna read it no matter what. So basically we have Rue and Eli. The first chapter is from the perspective of Rue, and she works in food science is what it seems like, which cool profession. I always forget how funny her books are. Like just the way that they talk always makes me chuckle. Rue, I can tell from the beginning, her attachment style is avoidant for sure. Based on Ali Hazelwood's author note, we are going to unpack that and see why, because she mentioned a couple things like, you know, she spent a lot of time at like her friend's house because she was running away from hers. We meet Rue on the day that this other company is presumably going to possibly take over their company. And it's funny because the name of the company, the Harkins, let me see. The name of the company that's going to take over is called the Harkness people. So Harkness is like the name of the company. Talked about this before in other videos where I do a lot of word association. So like the fact that this girl's name is Rue, like obviously I'm going to be thinking of Rue the whole time. Rue from Hunger Games. The people that are possibly taking over their company or buying out their company maybe are the Harkness, and I can't stop thinking of the Harkonnens from Dune. because they're also trying to basically take over. They have been like fighting with the people that have already been there for so long. You know, Paul Atreides, he says like, oh, you guys have been fighting like these people for decades. Like my family's been fighting them for centuries. And it just reminds me of that. But anyway, back to the story. Rue, she's just like not really into relationships. She kind of just hooks up with people. Good for her, whatever you want to do. But I guess the guy she went out with the night before, they were supposed to hook up, but they didn't. Whatever, something happened. And of course, you know, the next day, the Harkness group, they're coming in to meet with, I guess, the employees of Klein. From what it seemed, I'm just about to start on the next chapter. And the next chapter is from Eli's point of view. And it says the previous night. So I'm assuming that this Eli is the man that Rue went out with the night before. And now he's showing up at her work. Love that. This is my fifth book that I've read by Ali Hazelwood. I love Ali Hazelwood, but I forget that like her STEM romances are pretty much all workplace romance in a way, and they're all like either PhD students or working in STEM. But what I forget is that it's always workplace romance. And this is interesting because it's like, if Eli's part of the group that's like buying out her company, there's definitely like a position of power there, power play there, which has come up in her other books before. I'm pretty sure, yeah, Love Hypothesis. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that like most of them are kind of like the power dynamics are interesting. Yeah, I'm excited to read. I'm glad it's dual POV. I think most of her books are dual POV. No, because I remember reading Love Hypothesis. I remember saying that book would do well with a point of view from like the guy, because I don't think we got that. I don't even think we got that in Love Theoretically. But this is dual POV, which I think is going to make for a much more rounded story, because then we can finally see what the hell this guy's thinking. Because sometimes I'll read books and I'll be like, I would love to know what this other person is thinking, because for a lot of times we don't know what they're thinking, and it's just all the inner workings and inner anxieties of like the main female character, which is fine, totally relatable. But sometimes I'm like, maybe it'd be nice to hear what the guy or the girl in the relationship, like the partner's thinking about, or the love interest is thinking about, because they could be thinking something completely different. And that to me is where the miscommunication trope comes in, which is my least favorite trope, which I don't really read books anymore with that. I think romance has evolved past the miscommunication trope, which I appreciate. I'm happy this is dual POV, and I'll come back later. I need to just like get some reading done, and then I'll update. Hopefully maybe like when I'm like 50% through. I plan to read this basically all morning. I have almost finished my coffee, and I don't have to leave my house until 12. I got up and like took a shower very early, cleaned my apartment, and now I have just like the freedom to sit and devote my time to Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. Why was chapter 3 of this book so good? Like what? It's basically Eli and Rue's like first meeting, and you know, they're gonna meet up to like, you know, do the thing, because that's like what the dating app is for. And you pretty much like get this all in the beginning, and things go awry. You find out like a little bit more about her and him. This is why I love a dual POV, because you get all of Eli's thoughts, and this man is smitten already. This woman has bewitched him, I feel like, because his thoughts, like he's just like, I would do anything for her. And there's a part where he's basically like, he says, Eli was entranced, her servant, spellbound. He would go grocery shopping and make her dinner off a YouTube recipe of her choice. He'd wash her car, read her a book, sit here outside her door and make sure she was safe and protected. They could hold hands all night, they could play Scrabble. He was very close to imploring for something, everything, anything. This man's in love, like already. Good morning. It is the next day, and I just finished working out. I am 37% into Not in Love, and I wanted to get further. I wanted to get to like 50% last night, but I was so tired. I'm really liking this. I feel like it's so interesting because both Eli and Rue obviously like each other, and they have this like unspeakable kind of like carnal need to be with each other, but in a like sexual way, because she's like no relationships and he's like, I don't do relationships either. So both of them are kind of like no relationships, but it's that trope of kind of like, I don't do relationships, but maybe I would for you. As much as they talk about like only really wanting to sleep with each other, because we get Eli's point of view, it's clear that he would love to do a little bit more than sleep with her. Like for him, that'd be great. The way that he like talks about her and the way that the things that he talks about doing to her, I'm just like, yeah, you are obsessed. And she feels the same way, and they do kind of admit that to each other, like, you're feeling it too, I'm feeling it too, but no. It's like sleeping with the enemy. That's the trope, I feel like, sleeping with the enemy, because he's on the group of people that are coming in to not necessarily buy out Klein, her company, but to kind of see what's going on, and their intentions may not be as good as they like presented it initially. She's dealing with that as far as being attracted to someone that's like behind enemy lines, essentially. Her spicy scenes, you know, are always good. But I will say, I feel like the first spicy scene was not awkward, but because both of them have their kind of like, they met on an app for spicy things, and they have very specific, like she has very specific boundaries, and so her boundaries are very interesting. Their first encounter is interesting. It doesn't seem like super sexual. I don't know how to explain it. It almost seems very technical, as much as like this is just like an itch I need to scratch. Like there's obviously some kind of emotional thing that's going to happen with her because she already kind of feels it. So I probably don't think it's a good idea for them to sleep together if they really are trying to stay apart. And like it's a one-time thing, but it's like, is it? We'll see where it goes. It's a romance, so it's kind of like we kind of know where it's gonna go. I feel like there's so much at play, you know, like that sleeping with the enemy is such an interesting trope that I don't think I've read before, because yes, there's like enemies to lovers, but I wouldn't consider them specifically enemies. I would just consider his company an enemy to like her company. So it's like he's behind enemy lines. So it's like sleeping with I don't know how to explain it. Like he hasn't done anything bad to her specifically. He doesn't treat her like shit either. For instance, like I felt like in Love on the Brain, because that's enemies to lovers, I thought like the way that he treated her, I really was like, wow, this man hates her. That was one of the first books that I have read where I was like, oh, this is not just like weird sexual tension. He makes it seem like he sabotages things, and it's just like, oh, he actually doesn't like her. So you couldn't really tell why he was doing that or not, because again, there wasn't a POV from him. In this one, like he says, I like you as a person. So I don't think they're enemies. I just feel like he's behind enemy lines, and that's unfortunate. A couple days, so I need to wrap up this reading vlog for Not in Love. I finished it I think 2 days ago, and I liked it, but I didn't love it. I like Ali Hazelwood's writing. I think her writing is really accessible, and I love like being with her characters. Love on the Brain is still my favorite book by her, and it's funny because I know that a lot of people don't like that one because people just say it's just like a copy of the first one, but that's kind of like what we get from Ali Hazelwood. She gives us romance, emotional romance set in the STEM world, and I love it. I feel like even though this book was like highly sexual and a little bit more sexual, and a little bit more spicy than her other books, I feel like it was done really well. Ali knows how to write a spicy scene, so it's like we never doubted her. If she wanted to write an erotic romance, then you're like, girl, go for it. I liked it. I am glad that I read it quickly. I'm not good at reading books that come out that I'm really like hyped about. I get super hyped, and then I'll get the book and then I just won't read it for a year, and that's always really annoyed me. I'm glad that I was able to like read it this week. I like wrote notes. My friend got me this cute little journal, and I never really book journal. I used to a lot more, but I'm realizing in order to not ramble on, I need to start writing my thoughts down. I've never not liked an Ali Hazelwood book, and I can see why she called it an erotic romance. Like I said, it's a lot more physical than the other books, but I also think there was a good balance of emotional. I think that the book really benefited from the dual POV, because Eli, he to me had more of the emotional range. Like he had worked through his trauma and was able to kind of communicate on that. Even though he still didn't really want a relationship, he still was willing to like open up, and he was very clear kind of about what he wanted. Rue isn't there yet. She's not as emotionally available, I would say, as maybe Eli is, which is why I think that the book benefited from a dual POV, because if it was just from Rue's POV, we would get such a surface level book, I feel like, because she doesn't know how to communicate her emotions, and I feel like a lot of the emotional stuff came from Eli. Ali made a great decision doing dual POV, because like I said, her other books are not dual POV, especially in like her first two. I really wanted the POV of the guy in those books, and I think it would have benefited. So I think that this book really benefited from the dual POV. To me, there were a lot of fun tropes in the book. There was a little bit of groveling, which was, I didn't realize, but I love it. Groveling is like one of my favorite tropes. Not enemies to lovers. I would not say enemies to lovers. I would say sleeping with the enemy. That's gonna be my new name for this kind of trope. I feel like normally it's called forbidden romance, and it is a bit of forbidden, but I feel like forbidden romance can be such an umbrella. But if we're specifically looking at it, I would say sleeping with the enemy is the trope, and that's what I'm gonna call it. So I need to find more books where the trope is sleeping with the enemy. There are things that I feel like she hasn't explored before in her writing, like Good Girl King and delayed gratification, and I feel like it was really interesting to see Eli and Rue kind of explore those things together. If you like any of those tropes, groveling, you know, anything a little spicier, Good Girl King, all of those, if you love Ali Hazelwood, like, this book is for you. I always have a lot of fun reading her books. That's pretty much it. I tried to make this vlog as spoiler-free as possible, and if I failed, I am so sorry. I'm trying to get better at doing spoiler-free reading reviews, reading vlogs. Sometimes I don't know how to talk about the story without going into actual detail. I tried. If you made it this far, thank you so much for sticking around. Thank you, as I always say. Like, comment, subscribe, all those things that you guys know how to do. Thank you again, and until next time, bye.